And we are not live. This is Donald Jr. and your favorite insurance agent. Also,
Michelle DeSalle, the Wealth Tattletale.
so this show is previously recorded due to scheduling conflicts, but I had to have this gentleman on because we are talking about a topic that affects a lot of Texans and a lot of people really in America. And so it's a topic about being unbanked or underbanked. And so if you know anybody
Uh-huh.
in that situation, definitely pass the show to them because this is going to be a very relevant topic. So let's go ahead and get lit. All right, without any further ado, I'd like to bring on Kyle Scott. He's running for Harris County Treasury. Hey, Kyle, how's it going? How are you doing today?
I'm
Hey,
great, and
Kyle.
thank you guys. Thank you guys for working me into your schedule. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you
Well,
for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy campaigning and you're all over the map having 12-hour days. So for you to take time out of your schedule to be with us, we're very appreciative.
Thank you.
so, Kyle, you are running for this important office, and we're pretty much friends. We see each other out on the different scenes and everything, and you're hard at, trying to work for this campaign. Tell our listening audience a little bit about who you are.
So I started life as a high school teacher till I realized I was not tough enough for eighth graders. I went back to school and received my PhD in political science, taught at the university level for a few years. We moved back to Houston in 2008 when we started having kids, and then I was a small business owner a few times over. Received my MBA from Rice University and served on the board of trustees at Lone Star College.
So it's
Ooh,
actually
well,
Dr. Kyle Scott.
yes, that's impressive. So, thank you so much for that. The topic that we're going to discuss this evening is unbanked or underbanked. And this is something that you're very passionate about. Let's just kind of take the audience a little slower because we may not quite get what this is. So, unbanked is someone that does not have a checking account or a savings account. With an insured FDIC financial institution. Let's talk about how that affects Americans.
So one of the ways it affects is certainly there's a safety issue because if you're dealing with all cash or when you cash your paycheck and you receive that cash, there's definitely a safety issue concern. There's also a time and a money factor concern, which is if you have to be subjected to payday lenders or if you have to buy a money order or if you have to wait in line to pay your bills, that's taking away your time from leisure activities. It's taking your time away from productive activities. It's also silently taking money from your paycheck. So if you make $10 an hour and by the end of it, your take home is $7 an hour after taxes and you have to pay all these fees to pay your bills without access to a banking institution, you've just become 30% poor before you spent your first dollar. So you're really prohibiting people from moving ahead unless they have access, unless they gain access to traditional banking institutions.
Wow. But a lot of people never thought about it that way.
Yes, ma'am. And it's not something that's talked about a lot for a number of reasons. One, it doesn't affect a large percentage of people. In Harris
Mhm.
County, though, we have 23% of people that are classified as unbanked or underbanked. So that's almost a quarter of
Wow.
the population. It also, it largely exists. A large portion of that is in first and second generation Americans. So
Mm.
if you move here from a country like Argentina or the Philippines, you don't know what the FDIC is because they don't have those in your home country. So you may
Mm.
not know what it is to deposit money and have it be secured up to $200,000, that the government guarantees that money in the bank. You could just think that money's disappeared because it has happened to you in the past, right? The other side, when you drive through certain areas of our community in Harris County, you can drive through one area and you see a title loan place, you see a payday loan place, but you never see a Bank of America. In other places, you drive through Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Regions, whatever you want to see. And there's a disparity there, and you also see a lack of income equality across those areas too. the key to this is access to banking.
Wow. That's
Ooh.
incredible. So how
So
can you
when you
resolve that? The fact
So,
that they're in certain neighborhoods but not in other neighborhoods.
yeah, so a large part of this does start with legislation, which is not something I can directly do anything about from this office. I can certainly go to the legislature and lobby for certain things, but it's nothing within the authority of this office. One of the things I want to attack from this office is use this office for a platform first to lobby, and lobby is probably a strong term, but maybe advocate for, right? Lower restrictions. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the other side is there's a trust factor in certain communities, and there's a knowledge factor that's lacking, which is we need to utilize our churches who are already in the communities. We need to utilize our educational institutions, whether they be K through 12 or whether they be community colleges, and then bring banking executives, banking employees into those communities where people live. You take those opportunities to them, and you start out very simply with Banking 101. Here's the banking process. And you create a knowledge base, but you also create a comfort level. I've spoken with some people that I hear this at church, and this is sort of what sparked an interest in it. Is some people say, I don't have nice clothes, I can't go into a bank. And if you go to church, some people say, I don't have nice clothes, I can't go to church. Banks, churches, they'll take you coming as you are, right? So the idea is to reduce whatever barriers we can. Now, what we do know, and this is something I can't formally address, but I can informally to advocate for some of these changes, is banking institutions charge fees for low deposits. So if you deposit $100, you will be subjected to fees and penalties, unlike if you were to deposit $100,000. And the reason why is it's more profitable for a bank to accept one $100,000 deposit than $1,100 deposits, right? Because that requires less staff, that requires less facilities. So they build up intentionally barriers to people of lower financial means, and we have to do something to address that as well.
Absolutely.
Wow. From people that have been using banks for many, many years, that's a lot of things you just did not know.
It certainly is. And, as we discussed, it's one of these things because that goes unrecognized and unnoticed, largely because of the populations that it affects, but also these populations are not usually engaged politically. Therefore, they have no voice, right? So there's nobody who's willing to champion this cause or take something up or to take this mantle because it doesn't affect the large majority of voters. There's no political payoff to take up this charge.
Wow, that's so sad. Well, we're glad you could be an advocate for the people that aren't being advocated for. So that's awesome. I hope this issue gets pushed to the forefront, and that way people could do something about it versus just talk.
Yeah, I think that's the teacher in me, right? That sort of comes out from time to time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we covered what unbanked is. Now there's a situation, sometimes underbanked. You had the account before, right? So this means people that have had checking accounts and savings accounts with an FDIC institution, but regularly use what we call AFSs, which is alternate financial services. So why don't we just kind of delve into what does that actually mean for us, Kyle?
Right. So an underbanked would be somebody who does have your standard checking, savings, money market account, but what they don't have. So say you want to go to open a new business. You've saved up cash, either in your savings account or you just have the cash. But you're going to need a little bit more money to expand the way that you want to. You don't have 3 to 5 years of tax returns. You don't have all the documents in place. You may have been in business for 3 to 5 years, but you never knew what you would need to later go to a bank. So this group of people then is prohibited by the banking institutions. And I mean, largely banks are risk averse, so they need documentation that you have a real business.
Mhm.
But it's then going to these usually small businesses and educate them on what they need early on in their process, or working with them after they're established and need that first loan to go in and help them through that bookkeeping process to get everything in order. I've met with
Mhm.
some business owners who still keep everything on, notepads. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, let's at least move this to QuickBooks so that we can show some sort of financial history. If you think about if you're underbanked and you use ATM withdrawals and you're not keeping track of the payments that you make for bills, good luck trying to go get a home loan. Same thing if you're 18, 20, 25 years old and you're want to go back to school. Good luck trying to get a student loan if you don't have these things in order. So we have to start working with people early on by being proactive about what it takes to actually gain access to capital, not just to do what to do with your capital once you have it and how to utilize the bank that way, but how do you gain access to the capital that the bank uses.
Wow. That sounds like a whole nother show that you should come on and introduce us to, like, what it is required for people to be set up properly if they want capital in the future. That sounds like an amazing show to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's
So you
a
have a
lot of
lot of
great.
knowledge about.
Yeah,
I was
there's
about
a
to
lot
say
of
you
great.
have.
There are some really good
Hold on.
resources out
Hold on,
there.
hold on. Okay, so your vast knowledge of this subject matter is great. How does that tie in to the office that you're running for? You're running for Harris County Treasurer. Why don't we talk about your interest in that? Why are you so passionate about this office, and what are you going to do when you get in office?
Right. So what I'm talking about here, addressing the needs of the unbanked and underbanked. This is something that is not a official duty with the office. It's something that I think I can do and develop the office into as an
Mm-hmm.
additional responsibility. So, this race is probably one of the, if not the most obscure race on the ballot. It is the last of the county races on your ballot. We have the longest ballot in the nation in Harris County, and this is the last of the countywide races. So, every dollar that flows into and out of the county passes through the treasurer's office. So you are the first and the last check against any waste, fraud, or corruption. So first table stakes is making sure that the money goes to the right places and stays out of the wrong places, that we're not paying off friends and family, that we're not giving out contracts that shouldn't be given out. The other part of that, though, is bringing about transparency. Good luck going to the county website to try to find out where your money is. You can't. A lot of times it sits on different websites that you actually have to know. Sometimes it's password protected. Sometimes it's just not there at all. So one of the things that the treasurer ought to do is it's the only elected official that can't give out contracts, and it's the only official that's in charge of a budget process and that has full line of sight on the project process that is not also employed by the majority of commissioners court, meaning you have 100% independence from the commissioners court, and so you're solely accountable to the taxpayers and the voters. So you can actually act as an advocate, as a fiduciary rather, for the taxpayers in a way that no other office can.
That sounds
Okay.
exciting.
Yeah.
I'm glad that there's somebody on our side, because it seems like sometimes with the government, a lot of times they say if you can't beat the government, join them, right?
And a large part of this was I see that in our county, in Harris County, our budget has increased 40% in the past 4 years. We've also
Really?
received $1.4 billion in federal aid, and I haven't seen any potholes get filled up. I've seen our homicide rate increase 65%, and I've seen no large flooding projects tackled. I'm not an engineer. I'm not in law enforcement. I can't do much about those issues, but I contend that you can't get those two issues right until you get the money right, and I can do something about the money.
That's awesome.
Get that money right. That's what I always talk about, getting the money right. Kyle is the
That's right.
man. Help us get that money right, Kyle.
That's right. Just out of curiosity, like how was the Harris County able to increase the budget so dramatically in the past 4 years? That's a pretty dramatic increase.
Right. So there's fees associated with car rentals and hotels. There's overflow. There's money that comes from the toll road and the port authority. But the largest component of the budget is the property tax that's levied by Harris County. Now, there are two components of the property tax. One, the value of the property, and two, the tax rate. What we've seen is escalating property values, which means when you multiply that by an existing tax rate, even if that tax rate has gone down a little bit or just up by a little bit, you're going to see more revenues coming in because the property values increase. And because we live in an area that's growing, we're adding new development, and the value of the homes is going up. Some may say it's going up artificially so that we can increase the revenue without increasing the tax rate, which means taxpayers don't then complain as much if their tax rate doesn't go up, but it's just their home values. But I contend that if you're not adding the services that you need to, that you should actually be lowering the tax rate to counterbalance the increasing property value rates so that you remain somewhat revenue neutral. But what we're seeing is that instead of putting the additional funds into actual services and addressing problems, we've added over $36 million in new administrative positions. That's
Wow.
$36 million just in administrative overhead for various executives. And when you add in all the out-of-state consultants that we're paying, you're coming close to $100 million of sending money elsewhere.
Wow.
Oh, what
That's
an eye
horrible.
opener. What a jaw
Yeah,
dropper.
it is. Especially since the property values have been skyrocketing since the pandemic. And obviously, all that revenue is going to the government, which is great if they utilize it responsibly. And so, hopefully, we can have a person in a position like you that will utilize the revenue responsibly and keep it in Harris County, where we can actually improve our county. Because correct me if I'm wrong, we're one of the largest counties in America. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I want to be clear about the role of the treasurer also. We are the third largest county in the nation and the largest in the state. But the treasurer doesn't decide where the money goes. That's commissioner's court. You have 4 county commissioners and a county judge. What the treasurer does is it holds them accountable by bringing about the transparency. So if people aren't hearing the things that I just told you, that's a problem. Because if you don't have that level of transparency, you can't have accountability of those people making the decisions, right? Because then they can just say, well, that's not us, that's somebody else. So the idea around this office is just to make people more informed. And I tend to think that the backroom deals, the sweetheart brother-in-law deals don't get done if somebody's shining a light on it.
Woo.
That's
All right. Well,
huge.
you're going to have a big flashlight, Kyle.
Yes, ma'am.
But I got confidence in you. Thank you. Talk about being out there on the campaign trail. Let's just wrap it up with just some personal stuff. How is it going out there on the campaign trail?
So it couldn't go better, right? When I talk to Democrat voters, I talk to independent voters, I talk to Republican voters. Everybody has strong opinions on a lot of issues, but they're usually national issues. And when I introduce them to what the county actually does, and then more directly what the county treasurer also does, this crosses partisan boundaries. So I spend my time literally circling the county. You go from Hockley down to Deer Park, to Galena Park, to Denver Harbor, all the way down to A-Leaf, Sharpstown, and just traveling around talking to folks, doing what I'm doing now, which is, hey, listen, there's 4.7 million people in this county who have no idea what the treasurer does. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Let me tell you about my plan for it. So right now, I stand today, since March, since the primary ended, I've made over 700 meetings. I've put 50,000 miles on my car, and I've personally knocked on just over 6,000 doors. So I'm doing everything I can. I left my job last October to spend as much time as I can personally engaging with people. This is a race that, because it's not a popular race, doesn't raise a lot of money. So if you really are serious about it, you have to get out there and do the work. I also think that it comes down to a question of integrity. If I'm going to ask somebody for something as important as their vote, I better earn it.
Awesome.
Wow.
You definitely put in the hours, you put in the time, you put in the work, you're shaking the right hands. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you and contribute to your campaign if they needed to?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is electkylescott.com. That's electkylescott.com. Or anybody at any time can shoot me an email. That's vote, VOTE, the number 4, Kyle Scott at gmail.com. That's vote, VOTE, the number 4, Kyle Scott at gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate your transparency. We appreciate everything you're doing. It sounds like you're putting in the effort, which is awesome. And hopefully, by God's grace, you'll be our next Harris County Treasurer. So let's go.
Well, we're rooting for you, Kyle.
Thank you guys very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And thank you for accommodating my schedule.
Absolutely. Well, you take great care and have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Woo, that was so informative. The things
It
I've
really
never
was.
done.
Learned so much from that interview.
Very grateful
And
for Kyle for coming on.
Absolutely. And the sacrifice that he made when he, quit his job to really dedicate the time to doing this, that's a big, big commitment, and sounds like a boatload of integrity to me. So I'm really excited for him.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's bipartisan, so it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. Like, he's the one holding the Republicans and Democrats in check, right? He's kind of over all the commissioners, making sure the money goes where it's supposed to go. So it's an interesting position. I never heard about it until he came into our lives and at networking events, and he's very active in the community, and we appreciate him for being active.
We see him out a lot. And so, like you said, it's not a very popular position, but it's much needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you got any value out of today, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to FinLit Live. This is the channel where we learn about financial literacy. And what he talked about today is very relevant to what's happening right now, because the election is around the corner. And so definitely go and vote. No matter who you vote for, just vote and do your research on each of the candidates before you put your vote in, because it's so important to be knowledgeable and not just haphazardly cast a vote, because our votes matter, and it's going to play a difference, not only in the next year, but the next 4 years and on. So it's a very crucial election. So this is something that is very important to both of us. And so we just wanted to share information about what a treasurer does for the county. And so we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Doctor, how can they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me on YouTube. No, I didn't mean to say that right off, but you can on YouTube with the Wealth Telltale, and also on Instagram. And you see that right there? No, it's right there. Yeah. And if you want to do a consultation with me, you can find me on centricadvisor.com. Thank you. What about you?
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, I have a website, darnoldjr.com. Once again, it's my name. It's right here. darnoldjr.com. Definitely check out my website. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. And so one of the big things right now, especially with the young people, is TikTok. I am on TikTok, so you can find me on TikTok. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we do this every Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. And so next week, we have exciting guests for you. So definitely want to tune in next week. We appreciate you guys for getting lit.